On this day, welcome to the fifth day of the war in the Middle East. Sit down and prepare yourself because with how fast things are happening, it looks like this will take a while before it ends. Today, earlier this week, the IRGC declared that they do not recognize any red lines. This was shown as a symbol of their strong resolve, a clear message that they are ready to match anything thrown against them by Washington and Jerusalem. And in the following days, they did everything to prove it, not only against the forces of Israel and America, but also against the Gulf countries themselves, which for several months had been coordinating with Washington to prevent this war from breaking out in the first place. A very fierce way of showing gratitude, isn't it? Only 5 days have passed, but the maps of the countries involved and at risk seem to be expanding more than when the bombs first fell. After many years, this day may be remembered as the exact moment when the Middle East finally collapsed even further. A fall into oblivion. What is really happening now in the Middle East? And will this war really spread even further? That's what we will answer. But before we start that, if you're new to our channel, please don't forget to subscribe so you'll always be updated with videos like this. Into the void. At the time of this recording, we are now on the 5th day of the United States and Israel's campaign against the Islamic Republic, the most intense air campaign the Middle East has witnessed since the 2003 invasion of Iraq. More than 1,000 missiles and bombs have already been launched by the combined forces at countless targets, and the B-2 stealth bombers have also been deployed to further strengthen the offensive. In just 12 hours, Iran's air defense has already been weakened, and since then, the warplanes have been able to operate almost freely in the skies. Because of this, Washington and Jerusalem were able to destroy an estimated half of Iran's missile launchers. The other day, the IDF dropped more than 250 munitions in a single strike, which they said hit the leadership compound of Raymond in the center of Iran. According to almost all officials in the administration, this is only the first phase. U.S. Secretary of State Mark Rubio said that the heaviest blows are yet to come. And in history, when presidents talk about the length of a war, they usually do not exaggerate its estimated duration. The first wave of attacks, which resulted in the loss of Iran's supreme leader Ali Khamenei, also struck a large part of their strongest leadership, causing confusion in the country. And in some aspects, it seems to be running on autopilot. There are reports that some parts of the chain of command are not functioning. Some military commanders and lower-ranking officials were forced to rely on old standing orders, while others seem to no longer know what the next steps should be. Amidst this chaos, a leadership council was formed last Sunday. It is composed of the president, the chief of the judiciary, and a member of the Guardian Council to temporarily govern the country until the assembly of experts can formally choose a new supreme leader. A process that under normal circumstances requires thorough deliberation by all 88 of its members. But it is clear that this is not a normal situation. Remember, there have only been 2 supreme leaders in the history of the Islamic Republic, so this is not something that happens often. While the bombing continued and much of the communication was destroyed due to a self-imposed internet blackout, the IRGC pushed to speed up the appointment of the next supreme leader, even if this deviated from the legally stated processes. Reports suggest the Assembly of Experts meeting may shift to a semi-remote format. There were really different reports about what actually happened. Some outlets said that the deliberation would continue throughout the week. Meanwhile, the opposition media Iran International reported that Mojtaba Khamenei has already been elected as the next supreme leader. At present, this cannot be confirmed independently, but there is also no clear indication that the report is wrong. And if this is true, it would be a great irony in this whole conflict. The 1979 revolution was carried out to overthrow a hereditary monarchy. But after almost half a century, it seems that the Islamic Republic is taking on the same form. According to reports, Mojtaba only holds a mid-level position among the clergy and teaches Shiite theology. He has never held a formal position in the government. Nevertheless, he has long served as an important intermediary between the supreme leader and the Guard Command networks. Some analyses say he was chosen because he can go in any direction the regime takes if it survives the war. If they choose to continue the fight, he has the background to stand by it. No matter how bad the situation gets, would they be forced to enter a painful agreement with Washington? He is one of the few personalities with enough credibility among the hardliners to present this without it looking like a complete surrender. Some confusion in this selection stems from alleged events during its conduct. Israel attacked the compound of the Assembly of Experts at Palm yesterday, and, according to Israeli sources, the airstrikes hit while the votes for the new supreme leader were still being counted. Footage has surfaced showing the building destroyed by the bomb in the branch headquarters, which was also hit the previous day. Iran insisted that the Palm building had already been evacuated, but the details remain unclear. However, perhaps a more important question than who will lead is whether the country can remain whole. According to a report shared by OSINT Defender, the CIA is reportedly in talks with the Kurdish opposition inside Iran and Iraq about the possible provision of military support, with the clear objective of sparking a popular uprising. It was also reported that Trump spoke with Mustafa Hijri, the leader of the Democratic Party of Iranian Kurdistan. According to high-ranking Iranian Kurdish officials, it is expected that the Kurdish paramilitary forces will expand in a ground operation in western Iran in the coming days. It is possible that in a short period of time, this could succeed in tying down Iran's security forces in the region. However, in a broader perspective, this could cause deep destabilization for the whole of Iran in the future. There's almost only one thing that both the Islamic Republic and opposition figures, including Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi, agree on. The separation of regions based on ethnicity and the complete disintegration of Iran is a red line that they will not support or allow under any circumstances. Running dry. When there is war, a simple truth always prevails. If you throw a punch, it's likely that the other side will punch back. So it should come as no surprise that Iran is responding to Operation Roaring Lion with a massive retaliatory attack, including targeting U.S. bases and Israel itself. It even reached the point where the IRGC declared that they recognized no red lines and presented their actions as self-defense. However, the actual targets hit by their missiles and drones went beyond simple self-defense. And it's starting to look like this could escalate into a wider regional war. 5 out of 6 members of the Gulf Cooperation Council have large American military installations. And Iran made it clear even before the conflict broke out that these countries would be legitimate targets in the event of war, even if the attacks by America did not come from those bases. In Manama, the capital of Bahrain and home to the headquarters of the U.S. Navy 5th Fleet, the Shahed drones hit residential high-rises. And that's just the beginning. In the suburbs near Doha, a missile landed in a crowded area far from the heavily loaded American airbase. But the most shocking damage happened in Dubai. Although the UAE intercepted most of the incoming projectiles, the sheer number of simultaneous attacks caused debris from destroyed missiles and drones to still rain down on various parts of the city. This included a strike on the Fairmont Hotel, which is only 15 minutes away from the Burj Khalifa. Across all the Gulf states, Iran has launched over 500 ballistic missiles and over 1,100 drones, and this doesn't even include the ongoing attacks targeting Israel. If there is a biggest understatement this week, this is it. The Gulf countries were not pleased with these events. Qatar, for example, has long valued its role as a mediator and has spent several months trying to prevent this very war. But now it has been reported that Doha itself has also entered the war. Several Israeli media outlets reported that Qatar allegedly carried out similar attacks against missile launchers inside Iran. However, Qatari officials denied this and insisted that they did not join the coalition against Iran. Although it is not yet completely clear if a bombing really took place, one thing is certain: Doha was not pleased with Tehran's actions. Yesterday, Qatar shot down 2 Iranian Su-24 fighter jets that were approaching their airspace. They also intercepted over 100 missiles and drones, including one that was reportedly targeting Hamad International Airport. And they issued an unusually strong statement saying that such attacks will not go unanswered, and Qatar is not alone. Saudi Arabia, UAE, Kuwait, and others also warned that they might retaliate if necessary. One of the biggest concerns of the Gulf countries is the shortage of Patriot interceptor missiles. These are the main weapons used to shoot down incoming missiles from Iran. And based on reports, the situation seems serious. According to Bloomberg, Qatar's stockpile of Patriot missiles could be depleted in just 4 days at the current rate of use. And that data is from 2 days ago. The UAE has a slight advantage, but according to reports, their inventory is also in a critical state. At the current rate of consumption, it could be depleted within a week or even sooner. And resupplying is not as simple as just ordering a new batch. The United States only produces about 50 to 60 Patriot interceptors each month, and the current lead time for a new order is almost 3 years. In addition, many of these interceptors have already been allocated for Ukraine as well as for NATO allies in Eastern Europe and in the Pacific, who are preparing for possible tensions with China. These are also not cheap, costing almost $3 million each, and in some cases, up to 3 interceptors are needed to bring down a single missile. Here you can see Iran's natural advantage. It's easier and cheaper to launch a missile directly at the enemy than to ensure perfect coordination to intercept incoming threats. It's important to think about this because in recent years, especially in wars involving the West and its allies, we've gotten used to the idea that missile defense systems are almost perfect. For example, in the missile exchanges between Iran and Israel since 2024 and 2025, Jerusalem and its allies managed to intercept more than 75% of the projectiles launched by Iran. And even the remaining 25% is a bit misleading, because this includes some missiles that Israel deliberately did not intercept since they were not headed for populated areas. But no matter how high the interception rate is in the current conflict, enough still get through to cause serious damage. So when those interceptors run out, you're entering a different world, right? If that happens, the relative neutrality that some countries in the Gulf have maintained will become very difficult to uphold and will change quickly. In this situation, most of the danger will flow from the Gulf to Iran, but there are complications that could push the crisis into a more dangerous stage for the entire region. There are many things you can call Iran, but soft is not one of them. They are willing to do almost anything to stay in power. We saw that last January when thousands of their own citizens stayed in the middle of protests, and if they are completely cornered, it's hard to expect that anything will stop them from throwing everything they can. Though it's true they're still observing some limitations during this conflict. One more front. If you think that's enough, there's still another angle to discuss. One of the few parts of the containment architecture in the region that has remained intact despite the chaos is the ceasefire in November 2024 between Israel and Hezbollah. It's not a perfect agreement. There are tensions and political clashes between the groups and the state of Lebanon. But for 15 months, peace mostly prevailed. And you probably sense where this is going. That peace seemed to disappear yesterday as well. Remember, one of the main reasons why Hezbollah exists and why it has been supported, funded, and armed by Iran for decades is to serve as a shield in case a war breaks out against Iran. Even though they suffered heavy losses in the last battle against Israel in 2024, they are still there, although weaker than before. Because this is considered an existential battle for the Islamic Republic, it seems Hezbollah has no choice but to act. On March 1, that action finally happened. They launched rockets and drones toward an Israeli military base in the south of Haifa, the first cross-border attack since the ceasefire was signed. This was called a response to Khamenei's death. From a military perspective, that barrage had very little effect. Israel intercepted most of them, and those that got through landed in empty areas. And there were no reported casualties, but the political impact of violating ceasefire is a completely different matter. At around 3 a.m. on March 2nd, a series of airstrikes shook the southern suburbs of Beirut, the Bekaa Valley, and villages throughout southern Lebanon. In just one strike, the IDF hit approximately 70 weapon depots and rocket launching sites. This was followed by attacks on command centers, communication infrastructure, and even the media arm of Hezbollah in Beirut, including the destruction of the headquarters of their news network, Al-Manar TV, and Al-Nord Radio. An evacuation order was also issued for an estimated 80 villages. Most of them are along the southern border of Lebanon and Israel, a longtime stronghold of Hezbollah. By March 3rd, it was clear that both sides were already in full escalation mode. Hezbollah launched swarms of drones against the Ramat David Air Base, rockets at the Golan Heights, and a barrage at Mashab in the northern part of Israel. In response, Israel mobilized more than 150,000 reservists and relaunched a ground operation in southern Lebanon. The 91st Territorial Division advanced to the border to seize the strategic high ground. Amidst all this, there was an event truly unprecedented in the history of Lebanon. To understand the gravity of this, one must realize how extensive Hezbollah's control over Lebanon's politics has been for decades. Since its establishment in 1982, it gradually became like a state within a state. They have their own tax collection, run hospitals and schools, have their own security apparatus, and have amassed an arsenal supplied by Iran, an inventory that in many ways is even stronger than Lebanon's official armed forces. At the height of their power, it is estimated that they have 120,000 to 200,000 rockets and missiles, and an extensive tunnel network in the south that even the government itself cannot fully map. In 2006, in response to that summer's war, the UN Security Council passed Resolution 1701. It stated that Hezbollah should withdraw to the Litani River area and that the Lebanese armed forces, supported by the international force, should keep southern Lebanon demilitarized. In actual implementation, UNIFIL became one of the most expensive and controversial examples of turning a blind eye in the history of the UN. Their patrols are often restricted, blocked, and sometimes even harassed by the very group they are supposed to monitor. Not everything is entirely UNIFIL's fault either. Under the law, they cannot conduct independent operations against Hezbollah without the knowledge of the LAF, unless they themselves are directly attacked. And in fact, crushing Hezbollah is not really a priority for most of Lebanon's leaders. After the 2024 war, in which the government of Lebanon was mostly just a bystander, while Israel once again fought a paramilitary group within its own territory, is there now a possibility that this long-standing stalemate could finally be broken? After the ceasefire, the government of Lebanon, tired of watching the whole country get dragged into a war they had little direct involvement in, seemed to have found new courage. For the first time in many decades, they carried out operations to seize and raid Hezbollah locations. This same government, seeing their country once again dragged into an armed conflict with their neighbor because of Hezbollah's ties to Tehran, has taken steps that their predecessors never managed to do. They immediately imposed a total ban on all Hezbollah military and security activities, and with a clear statement from the president, this decision is final. There's no turning back. All of this points to one thing: a looming fire in Lebanon that could be as intense as what is currently happening in Iran. And for now, that's where we'll leave the story. Only 5 days have passed since the most intense air campaign the Middle East has witnessed in over 2 decades, and it has already achieved undeniable results. But at the same time, it didn't just open a can of worms. It's as if it blew up the entire can, and the pieces of chaos have scattered throughout the whole region. If Washington succeeds in maneuvering a transition within Iran, whether within the framework of the Islamic Republic or through a complete regime change, while its allies protect and stabilize Lebanon, it will surely become a part of history. For the staunch supporters of MAGA, this will be proof that the might is right approach is effective. However, the price being asked is very high and the mission is extremely difficult, and only time will tell if they can manage it. Meanwhile, we're here to keep giving you updates every step of the way because it looks like I really won't be able to leave this place anymore. So make sure to subscribe to our channel and we'll see you again in our next video.